Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Fabrizio Aiello. Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking? And today we have a choice. We have Horace H. Hoover or Hawkman. John's Longbox is the first to show up, so he's going to decide. Let's look. Actually, before we get into that, check out my comic book, Horace H. Hoover, currently published by Alterna Comics. Issues 1 and 2 are currently out, available for purchase at alternacomics.com. Issue 3 will be on a campaign in January, and then 4 and 5 later that year. So check them out. It's like a cult mystery detective. A little funny, a little cool, a little weird. All right, so these are the two options. We have Hawkman, who is pretty close. We still got a ways to go for him. And then we have Horace H. Hoover versus the geriatric hair plug vampire. At least that's his temporary name. It might stick. You just never know. So yeah, hope everybody had a good Christmas. Hey Ben Soto, how's it going? So John was technically the first in. So you get to decide. Are we doing Horace H. Hoover? Or am I finishing Hawkman? Obviously, they'll both get done eventually. And while you're thinking, I'm just gonna kind of noodle a little bit to warm up. Yeah, it was a little hectic. I didn't have a voice for like 4 or 5 days. So literally like a day and a half ago, I got my voice back. Some people are probably glad about that. Although, this was kind of funny. I realized when I don't have an actual literal voice, I tend to troll a lot more online. So there was a fair amount of trolling on Instagram, some on Twitter. I try to minimize it on Twitter, but man, on Instagram, I'll just troll the heck out of people sometimes. HHH, I love Horace more than Hawkman. All right, sounds good then. So yeah, this was the first go, but you'll notice his hand. I just really wasn't happy with his hand here, so I redrew it. Well, re-inked it, I should say. So I gave him a more naturalistic sort of hand here, which I kind of dug. So I'm gonna kind of noodle a little bit on this, and then I'll jump back into the actual one. Russell Wilson, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen your name. Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. The Hawk is looking killer. Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I don't do a lot of fan art, so it was really fun to do another character. I have an idea for a couple more sort of fan art traditional characters that I've always loved that I've never really drawn before. So I'll do them in between some Horace H. Hoover stuff for sure. You started trouble on Twitter too. Did I? No comment on that one. Yang Yan Zhao, how's it going? Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining. All right. So yeah, there was an Alterna announcement that there's going to be a campaign in January, just so everybody knows. Horace H. Hoover issue 3 will be on that campaign, which I wasn't expecting, but it's great. That way, that gets out there earlier, and then issues 4 and 5 will be my campaign. What I have been working on the past week or so is that Max sculpture in ZBrush, which is turning out really nice. I love the pose. I really love how it's turning out. So I like to get that finished. Once I start something like that, I don't, like usually when you set it down, it's kind of hard to come back to it. So I think I should be able to finish up that Max sculpture probably in the next few days, colored and everything. So I'm really hoping for the campaign, the Horace H. Hoover only campaign, to have the Horace H. Hoover model, Max model, and the Slurp model, which I thought would be kind of fun. So that's the goal, at least. I usually don't warm up very often, but I've been sculpting and I haven't been drawing as much this past few days, so it definitely can't hurt. And if anybody doesn't know, John's Longbox is a YouTube channel. Great channel with reviews, old comics, interviews with lots of big, great comic book names. Chuck Dixon and a ton. Jimmy Palmiotti, etc., and same with Yang Jen Zhao. And I hope I'm getting your name right. I really sat down and tried to learn it. I know what it's like having your name butchered. He also has a channel. I'll post them in the description with interviews and just great conversations. I think both of those guys do a really good job of, not treading the same territory all the time that everybody else does. So for me, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, check them out. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. All right, so I'm just going to futz around a little bit more. Yeah, it's funny whenever I start sculpting, and I don't go too long before I sculpt, because if I had to pick all of the things that I love to do, drawing and sculpting really are almost neck and neck for me. So it's very hard to not sculpt, but drawing just comes out ahead, unfortunately. Yeah, that was a good interview, John. It's always a good time to talk to somebody who has a broad knowledge of things, sometimes outside of comics too, and you guys both have a sort of a broader knowledge base of books in general and comics and how that all relates, and I always like that viewpoint. Oh, you know what? I just realized on the Twitter post, I posted why I think the Muppets Christmas Carol is closest to the book. So this is going to be a longer story, but I got time. So Christmas Carol is definitely my favorite Christmas story, but it's one of my all-time favorite stories in general. And I've watched every version, and I watch multiple versions of them every Christmas too. So that's kind of how obsessed I am with it. I did a Jacob Marley door knocker, and I sold that. But anyway, there's the one thing that always kind of bothered me was Scrooge didn't really repent or come to his senses, we'll say, until the ghost of Christmas Future. And that always kind of bothered me a little bit. We see him as a boy, we see him go through all of these stages, but depending on the version that you watch, he just doesn't relent. You see maybe there's a crack, but you know what, nothing. And it's only whenever he sees his grave stone that he's like, oh, geez, I'm sorry, you know, I'll change my ways, etc., etc. Anyway, it's something that's always bothered me, and I had never actually read the original Dickens. It's just not something, I don't know, it never really piqued my interest. So I'm like, you know what, this year I'm gonna read it. Now, last year I watched The Muppet Christmas Carol for the first time. I had never seen it before, and I'm like, you know what, I've seen every other version many times, like Scrooged and the animated and like the old versions. I'm gonna watch the Muppets. I'll give it a whirl, right? And first of all, it's Michael Caine, who just does an incredible job as Scrooge. He's so good as Scrooge, but the one thing that he does is that he really sort of comes to his senses before the last ghost. You see it pretty quickly on, and I really liked that. But I'm like, you know what? I don't know if is that truer to the book or not, since I never read the book. And then I didn't want to listen to somebody's summary of the book or anything like that. So I decided to read the book. And sure enough, in the book, the way I read it was he starts to really realize where he's gone wrong after the first ghost. There's a point where he was at Fuzzywigs, and I can't remember exactly. I don't want to butcher Dickens, but they're talking about the cost of the party that he put on, and for a moment there, Scrooge is like, you know, I wish for a moment I could tell Bob, my employee, something, you know. And at that moment, you're like, okay, he kind of gets it. Now, maybe he doesn't fully get it, but it's not like he's just this unrelenting piece of crap, you know. So it was nice to know that, from what I recall, that, yeah, the Muppets is actually, in my head, the most accurate version of A Christmas Carol. Because to me, that's the most important part, you know, is whenever he really sees where he's made mistakes. So if that's what sorry, sometimes I have to stop talking. And so that was my Muppets. Yeah, for sure. We should do something. I'll stream anytime. That'd be a lot of fun. Did you see the Dickens movie that came out a few years ago? It bombed. I enjoyed it. Oh yeah, The Man Who Invented Christmas. I think that was the name of it. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, again, it's a totally different take on it, but I really liked it. I thought it was well done. I'm such a sucker for that story that almost every version of it I really enjoy, but and that has, I'm blanking on the actor's name. The father, is it Jonathan Pryce? It's the guy that was in Brazil. I'm blanking on his name. But anyway, yeah, I thought it was really well done. Spicer McLeroy, how's it going? What's going on, Warriors? Hope you're all had a great Christmas. Hope you're doing well for breach sale. Things are looking great. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it feels like it's been a while since the holidays kind of hit, and then things get kind of crazy, and so this is kind of nice to get back to this and chat with people. And I was deathly ill. Well, not deathly, but yeah, Brazil was a great movie. A lot of times the Terry Gilliam stuff doesn't quite kind of live up to the visuals, but Brazil was I think his best. I'm trying to think of a better one. I mean, I enjoy most of his films. I feel like a few, again, the visuals are so great, but sometimes the story doesn't live up to what your expectations are. as far as the videos. I apologize if my voice kind of goes out. I was just saying I got my voice back like a day and a half ago, so we'll see if that holds. Baron Munchausen. Oh man. You know, I haven't seen that literally since college. I remember loving it, but that was so long ago. I don't know if I could comment on it. I'd have to rewatch it, I think. I even liked his Brothers Grimm. It wasn't great, but I thought some of it was pretty funny, some cool visuals. That was pretty good. Had my office Christmas party, if anybody from the office is listening. And we have that white elephant thing, gift exchange, whatever it is. And, everybody gives chocolates or wine or usually alcohol or gift cards or something like that. And I give them books every year. Either economics or philosophy or something. And they're like, "Are you trying to tell us something?" I'm like, yes, I am trying to tell you something. But you don't seem to listen. But this year I'm like, you know what, I'll do one book and just throw some fun stuff in there. So I threw a jazz CD in there, a Nietzsche book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a comic book. I was at Half Price Books, so the selection was brutal, but comic book and a little toy. We'll see if anybody reads the book. Any day for your rescheduled comic book radio episode? Yes, I just talked with Pete. Let me double check. I thought it was the 19th but let me double check. Yep, it is the 19th of January, so that'll be cool. It's been a long time. Yeah, I literally had just gotten deathly ill. I had zero voice. I'm like, even if I wanted to, I'd be croaking out some answers. It's gonna be brutal. You didn't give everyone copies of H. Hoover. People at work already have them, so I didn't want to double dip. So I've given issues to people, and although maybe I should have just done that anyway, and they could have passed on the book. The prices for the comics were crazy to me. It was like $3 an issue, and I've talked about it once or twice, and I know everybody else is saying it, but I mean these should have been dollar issues. And I wasn't going to give any of my comics away. That's for sure. All right. I'm not focused on this. All right. Let's see here. I'm just kind of jumping around all over the place. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, I was thinking about is I've never been a huge Charlie Brown Christmas fan. I know people absolutely love it, and the music is fantastic. But just in general, it's not something, I don't know. Yeah, we watched it as kids, but it's just not something I think of whenever I think of Christmas. And for some reason, the past couple of years, I've really enjoyed it. So I was looking forward to it. We were watching it, and I was thinking about how some of these stories, and it's just stories in general, but for some reason the Christmas stuff kind of sticks out to me, is these were made to entertain, no doubt, right? Like nobody's trying to convince you of anything or like, you know, there's nothing overtly serious about them. There's a message, sure, you know, the true meaning of Christmas and things like that. But the thing I kept thinking about is that they sort of serve a dual purpose now, in that they're almost like archival cultural points, whereas I would have never considered them that before. But now, you know, in the future, this was in the 60s, I guess they were made, people won't believe that, you know, we had these quaint little neighborhoods where everybody knew each other, and you can run over to people's houses and back, and I don't know, it feels far more important now than it used to. Before it was just, oh, it's a fun little cartoon, and it doesn't have to be Charlie Brown, it could be anything, right? Any movie that sort of depicts the U.S. at any given moment. But yeah, I think they serve a really a larger purpose than I considered them having. They're just going to be these little archival bits of things that unfortunately either don't exist or won't exist in the future. Just to order the music LP, cool. Yeah, it's a great album. I read somewhere that whenever it did come out, it sort of revitalized interest in jazz, and it's like West Coast jazz, cool jazz style, which I thought was really cool. My younger friends are amazed at how the kids in Stranger Things just rode bicycles everywhere and had so much unstructured time. Yeah, it's those things outside of the actual story that are like being documented, which is it's kind of crazy to think about it. I should have done some renders of the Max sculpture. I posted a work in progress on Twitter, but I'm so excited because it's such a cool pose. And for me, pose is everything. The very first sculpture and drawing of Horace H. Hoover, the pose really kind of brought the character to life. So especially for Max, I wanted his pose to be really descriptive. I think I achieved it. It's pretty cool. He looks cool as hell. I don't think I'll be doing an hour today, just because I'm still a bit under the weather. I don't want to push it. I know it seems like this isn't hard work, and it's not hard work, but you know, There's something just so brutal about being sick over a vacation, a holiday or something. Like when you're a kid, that's the worst thing in the world, being sick over like Halloween or something like that. And then you realize that follows you into adulthood. It can just totally ruin time off or some sort of event. Yeah, I think the next fan art thing I want to do is Doctor Strange. It's one of my favorites. Although I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of Doctor Strange comics. I have like a little mini run, but I don't have much. I've always wanted to draw them though, so that's kind of the next fan art I would like to do. Get that rest, brother. Thank you. Yeah. It's really nice where I'm at too. It's like in the 50s today. I'm in Pittsburgh, and it's kind of, it taunts you to go outside, at least go for a walk or a run or something, but I can't do that. Yeah, issue 3 of Horace H. Hoover is definitely going to be, it's a big one for me. Excuse me. It definitely felt like where my art and the writing and the coloring, everything kind of gelled for the first time. I mean, I'm happy with issue 1 and 2, but I don't know, like sometimes things just seem to come together. So for issue 3 for me, I was really satisfied with that. So I can't wait. And it's already done, so I just gotta ship the files over and then that campaign. And while that's being run and fulfilled, you know, I'll start to get my Horace H. Hoover campaign ready. So yeah, 2024 is going to be the end of Horace H. Hoover miniseries, which is exciting. I'm only a couple hours away. I took my 4-year-old niece to the park. It was really nice. Oh man, yeah, such a nice time. Like part of me is like, oh man, I wish it would snow, but then again, like when it's warm outside, it's just so pleasant. I'm sure we'll get snow soon enough. So what's the process like working with Alterna? Do you get approval for each stage of the process? Is it all up to you? It's all up to us. So, you know, I write, draw, ink, and letter, and then send all the files over. There have been a few instances where Pete has some feedback regarding lettering or placement of some stuff. But yeah, it's creator owned, so it really there are books, and for good or ill, hopefully for good, you enjoy them. I think there's something to be said about having a vision that you really get to put on the page. Now I have a proofer that she kind of works almost as like a proto editor for me though too. So it's very useful. Now outside of like friends and family and things like that, they give me feedback, and I have some artists and writers who give me very critical, good feedback. Having somebody that doesn't know me at all, doesn't really know what I'm doing, and they just get a comic book in the mail, they proof it and then give me feedback on language or things like that. So I have a proofer, what I call proto editor, but then again that's outside Alterna. So I decide out of those updates from the proofer editor what to incorporate and what not. I usually incorporate most of them though. She's great. Hey, Dr. Mask, how's it going? Hope you had a good Christmas. How do you define proofer? She just literally spell checks, grammatical mistakes, things like that. I got her just for proofing, and what she sent me back was well beyond, because she was so good and thorough. I'm like, wow. I just wasn't expecting over and above what I asked. So she does just proofing, spelling, grammatical stuff, and then she'll give me word choices occasionally, or like this sentence doesn't describe or it doesn't make sense or something like that. So much so that I actually wrote a prose short story recently that I'm having her actually literally do the editing and copywriting for, because I liked her so much for this other stuff. Yeah, and for the proofing, I'll be honest, I don't know if anybody else uses like an actual proofer. The only reason I do it, to be completely honest, is I started in advertising and marketing, and it's just ingrained in me that I need a proofer. If I don't have one, I will miss something. So that's not to say people aren't doing good jobs on their own. I just feel like I cannot send anything to a printer that hasn't been proofed. Just because, again, in advertising, it looks right, and you look at it 1,000 times, and you'll still miss things, generally. Because we're always, we're looking at other stuff. When I'm looking at a page, even when I tell myself, I'm like, okay, is this writing correct? Or is the spelling and the capitalization, is it all right? You're still thinking about other things, about the content of the sentence or the structure or the tone or something like that. So that's why I feel like you need somebody else to really take a look at that. Did she choose the word ululations? No, she doesn't. I don't think she's actually given me she's recommended structure like, I'm trying to think of an example. Nothing with like Horace's dialogue or anything. It's just she'll say this is a little confusing or something, or it sounds like you're talking about this, and then I'll go in and change it. But she doesn't she doesn't actually give me specific word choices, just, and I can't think of the right word, but just just feedback on the content, I guess, on top of the structure. But yeah, Horace's dialogue, that fortunately or unfortunately is all me. Yeah, and to me, an editor should really be about literally editing things down, more so than adding. You know, like, well, you don't really need this scene, or you don't need them to say this because you're actually drawing this scene here, so you don't necessarily need to say it. That's kind of my idea for a comic book editor. I know that might not be the case. Definitely, like, you know, in Marvel, that's not their definition of editor. But I think when you have a creator-owned, you know, I'm doing 100% of the comic book, to me, that's, sorry, that's more appropriate. Because at that point, if they're adding words or, you know, giving you suggestions on character interactions or things like that, to me, that's a co-writer. That really goes beyond editor, in my view. I'm getting very fiddly with this drawing, but this one's gonna take a while. At least, I don't know, 3 more hours for this one. I said I wasn't gonna go an hour, and it's already 40 minutes. So I don't want to make the backs of these solid black. If I made the backs of these tombstones black, it would be, no pun intended, a black hole for your eye, and it would just sit there. So it's definitely one of those times where I'm just going to go in. There's definitely going to be texture. It's going to be, I'm not going to leave any like large pieces of white, but at the same time, I'm going to make sure it's not too dark, that your eye just doesn't sit there. Like a block of cheese. If you go for 3 hours, technically, oh, sorry. You stuck to your word that the stream wouldn't be an hour. Oh, yeah, I don't mean 3 hours today. There's no way I'm doing that. I think I'd pass out if that happened. But yeah, 3 hour chunks. Hey, Jimmy Reyes, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. Man, I appreciate it. This is another Horace H. Hoover. So, sort of like this vampire guy kind of coming out of the mist. And Horace is ready to clock him. So, I got a ways to go on this one, though. Sort of got a creepy house in the background and some flying somethings coming to overwhelm Mr. Horace H. Hoover. Yeah, thanks again for popping in. Dr. Mask, how long do you normally sit and draw for when you're working on your comic? So right now I'm actually at my computer desk. So it's difficult to sit for a long time here, which is why, like, after an hour, I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. When I'm at my, like, drafting table, I mean, I get up and grab coffee every, 45 minutes, but I can do it for, 8 or 10 hours, especially if I'm drawing, because what I'll do sometimes is I'll start one page and I'll like rough out one comic book page, and then I usually like to let that sit for a bit, so I'll just grab another one. So I'll grab the next page in the sequential, in sequence, and then I will work on that for a bit. So it's kind of easy to get a lot done, because I put things down and I pick them up, and yeah, so I can definitely do like 8 or 10 hours. Now, I have a full-time job, so I just can do that on the weekends, really. But the nights, 5-6 hours, definitely. On a D&D scale of 3 to 18, what would HHH stats be? Oh, man. That's a good question. Okay, so strength, he's not super strong, but I'm going to put an asterisk next to that, and I'll come back to the strength thing. He's wiry, and, he's like a pugilist, we'll say. So he does have some training in sort of like fisticuffs, right? But for him, a lot of his abilities come from what he can make. So he'll make gadgets or devices to help him fight or figure things out. 9 strength would be average. Yeah, I would say he might be a little bit average. Again, with the caveat that he can make something to make that punch feel way harder than it looks like it's going to be. So that's why I'm like, yeah, like if he's not sort of amplifying his skills, then he's average, I would say. And we're definitely going to see, we saw a little bit of him making things in issue 2, but issue 3 will definitely be, we'll see a lot more of that. I sit a lot for my job, but I'll get up at least once. Yeah, sitting, like, in my office, I wish this was hyperbole. People will sit for like 3 or 4 hours at a pop, which I'm actually unsure how that's physically possible. I don't even know how it's possible, but they do it, because I'll pay attention sometimes. I'm like, I get up every, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes at minimum, grab some coffee, just to stretch my legs. But these other programmers will just sit for hours and hours and hours and hours. HHH going to make an appearance in one of your campaigns, John. Horace can pop up anywhere that he has a pocket dimension, a door or two. Yeah, it's funny. I think seeing character, I mean, that's what we loved growing up, right? Like, if you collected the Hulk, it was great, but the moment Iron Man or the Avengers showed up in a Hulk issue, you're like, it made it better. I don't know why, but that shared world feeling just made all the difference in the world. So I think characters popping up in other books is just almost a necessity to at least evoke that kind of feeling of comic books we of back in the day. So I'm actually very much looking forward to that kind of thing, because the interaction with your character and other characters, like, that's really telling. How they respond to him, how he responds to other characters, and of course the inevitable battle turned friendly, you know. Well, actually, I was going to say they all end up being friends, but I don't know about that. It's not like every time the Punisher showed up, like in Spider-Man or Daredevil, I don't think they ended up being friends in the end. So I guess I shouldn't say they always ended up being friends, but... Yes, he is a cartoon character, and kids have HHH and Wolf and Batsy toys in my comic. That's awesome. That's so fun. I want to make up all the characters in RPG games in case Fabrizio and others show up, so we can play TTRPG. That would be a blast. Now the question is, do I get to play Horace H. Hoover, Max, and Slurp? Or just Horace H. Hoover? This is where we find out that Slurp is like a god. But I'm saving that for later. Alright, I think I'm gonna do... I'm going to do this, and then that'll probably get us to the end of the day. Now the question is, do I follow the pencils that I did, or do I just play it by ear and do whatever? I think I'm going to do a little bit of both. Because I don't want all of these to stay straight. We're gonna go hatching, different angles. This is a very like EC Comics or Conan the Barbarian, like traditional inking type stuff, which I never do for Horace H. Hoover, but why not, right? We'll see how it looks. What's the worst that can happen? Worst case scenario, just black it all out. Yes, you play all three. Brian is Wolf and Batsy. RJ Thomas is... Oh man, I get to play all three. That would be freaking awesome. Yeah, man, I am... Not to repeat myself, I am so excited about this Max sculpture. I can't wait to post renders later this week. The pose, and I think that, again, the pose with Horace H. Hoover next to him is just going to look so cool. I'm getting really sloppy with this right now, aren't I? Yes, I am. That is sloppy inking right there, huh? Alrighty. Alright, a few minutes early can't hurt, right? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to show, but I think that's it. Dr. Mask, is there a HHH Alterna card on the horizon? You'll need stats for that. Yeah, I did for the winter merch campaign, the the card was on there if we reached, I think it was $5,000, which I don't think we did. So there is a card, stats and all of that jazz. So it is ready. I don't know when it'll show up again. I don't know if it'll show up on the January campaign or the Horace H. Hoover campaign, but it'll definitely be there. I did do stats for that. It's not, I don't think they're like traditional D&D stats, but they're similar. Yeah, it's in one way it's kind of tough. In one way it's easy, right? So if it's just him as a person, that's one thing, but he builds little machines and weapons and all these kind of things. So that gives him like this potential very large bonus in any particular thing. So we'll see. Hey, Captain Goodnight, how's it going? What did I land on? Bringing this back out. Horace H. Hoover versus vampire in a world of tombstones, maybe? Maybe the entire world is filled with tombstones. It's just one giant graveyard. I like that idea. So this will definitely be a story at some point in time in the future. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again, everybody. I appreciate you popping in after the Christmas break. I'll definitely be posting some more stuff, and check out Twitter for the Max 3D renderings, which I'm extraordinarily excited about. Yeah, thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it, and I will talk to you later. Have a good rest of your evening.